How can a young Muslim become the mayor of New York City? A person who caused fear for Netanyahu and Trump. His stance on the Palestinian issue is clear, and he openly supports Palestine. Not only is he a supporter of Palestine, but he also made it a part of his election campaign. Trump threatened him with imprisonment and called him a crazy communist. Zuhair Mamdani, the first Muslim to become the mayor of New York City. So who is Zuhair Mamdani, and how did he succeed in winning the primary election to become the mayor of New York City, even though President Trump doesn't like him? That's what we'll find out in today's video. His upbringing. Zuhair Mamdani was born on October 18, 1991. He has Indian roots, but he was born in Kampala, Uganda. When he was 5 years old, he moved with his family to South Africa because his father worked as a professor at the University of Cape Town. 2 years later, the family moved to New York City and they lived in the Queens neighborhood. There, Zuhair grew up among immigrants and workers, which is where he began shaping his political views and his desire to improve the conditions of the people there. Mamdani received his education at Bowdoin College and graduated in 2014. After joining the organization Students for Justice in Palestine, his political journey began. Growing up in a diverse and multicultural neighborhood, Mamdani always believed that there needed to be real participation and representation for everyone in society, regardless of their cultural or ethnic background. During his time with Students for Justice in Palestine and civil rights organizations, he successfully built a vast network of connections with political activists and lawyers. This development had a significant impact on the course of his political life later on. Challenges and struggles. Zuhair Mamdani faced significant challenges at the beginning of his political career, especially since he was an immigrant and a Muslim. Because of that, he had difficulty proving himself as a politician. To be able to run for political positions in the city, he had to fight against the stereotypes about immigrants and Muslims in the United States. His support for the Palestinian cause was also one of the challenges he faced, especially since New York City hosts the largest Jewish community in the world after Israel. His opponent, the former mayor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, was closely tied to the pro-Israel lobby. In addition to these challenges, Mamdani faced other difficulties related to funding and political support. When he first ran for the New York City Council, he didn't have the large financial backing or the network of connections that his competitors had. Even he himself refused funding from billionaires and decided to rely mainly on crowdfunding campaigns and the support of the passionate public backing his cause. The challenges Mamdani faced weren't just local. He had to confront racial and religious issues. He was constantly subjected to criticism and anti-Muslim and anti-immigrant remarks aimed at undermining his political image. His candidacy for New York City mayor in May 2025, the atmosphere was filled with joy and energy at the Brooklyn Steel venue in New York. This excitement was all because of Zuhair himself. Around 1,500 people gathered to attend Zuhair Mamdani's campaign rally for the position of mayor of New York City. These people believed in Zuhair, who was only 33 years old, and they were trying to convince the entire city to vote for him. When Mamdani entered the race in October 2024, many people thought he was just a candidate backed by the Democratic Socialists of America, especially since his political career was short and his history of supporting the Palestinian cause was long. These were traits considered unacceptable to many voters. However, over the next 6 months, Mamdani made a huge impact on the election race. He presented unforgettable political proposals, and his remarkable presence on social media platforms was impressive. The campaign's promotional videos were not only entertaining and elegant, but also had a unique ability to connect with the public. The first video that gained popularity was in the fall, after the general elections, when he interviewed Trump supporters in the Queens neighborhood. He made it clear that the officials had lost touch with the reality of daily life. On March 24, Mamdani became the first candidate to reach the maximum matching funds for the city's campaign. He also had the largest number of individual donors compared to all the other candidates combined. But most importantly, his campaign created the largest field program in the history of election races. Around 22,000 volunteers were reaching out to citizens, visiting homes, and making phone calls to encourage people to vote for Mamdani. His election program. Although Mamdani is not the type of person who frequently appears in the media and rarely speaks on television, he stands out as a man of the streets. Most of Mamdani's focus in his election program was on social and economic issues, especially those affecting the poor and residents of marginalized neighborhoods. He believes that the U.S. government is more concerned with the wealthy and ignores the poor. Mamdani is not just someone who loves slogans. He is a person of action who takes a real stand. In 2021, he announced a 15-day hunger strike in solidarity with taxi drivers due to their debts. Mamdani's program wasn't just about big promises that are rarely fulfilled, but rather, he presented an election program grounded in the reality of the citizens. He raised the slogan that New York City should be a place where anyone can live and afford the cost of living. Among the decisions he announced during his campaign were freezing rent prices and providing free public transportation. He also declared that he would work on improving healthcare and education. What was most interesting, however, was that he announced that the funds for these improvements would come from higher taxes he planned to impose on the wealthy and large corporations. As part of his election program, he announced that he would provide city-run grocery stores, aiming to offer food at lower prices to help low-income families. Mamdani also focuses on environmental justice. He adopts eco-friendly policies and supports initiatives aimed at improving the city's air and water quality. And let me tell you, Mamdani has already started achieving some of his goals to prove to the citizens that he's not here to play around. He played a significant role in improving healthcare in New York, offering health programs targeting vulnerable groups in society such as the elderly, women, and children in poor neighborhoods. He also worked on expanding mental health services and emphasized the importance of psychological support for individuals in low-income communities. One of the key points Mamdani focused on in his press interviews was the importance of supporting minorities in the city. He pointed out that all communities must be represented in the city, including South Asian communities and Muslims. He believes that, despite these communities representing a large part of the city's population, their representation in legislative bodies is still limited. He also focused on the importance of addressing issues that disproportionately affect these communities, such as housing problems due to rising rents and other economic pressures. Beyond domestic issues, Mamdani is also concerned with international affairs. He is particularly focused on the situation in Gaza, describing it as genocide. He said that if he becomes mayor of New York, he would issue an arrest warrant for Netanyahu if he saw him in New York. Attack on Mamdani. Mamdani's statements against the wealthy and those responsible for the genocide in Gaza exposed him to strong attacks from powerful lobbying groups such as AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. But the surprising thing is that Mamdani didn't care about the criticism and didn't retract his words. He also went out and said that New Yorkers are feeling anxious about the events happening outside the United States. He stated that it is impossible for him to change his commitments or his humanitarian values just because of the criticism. Due to his courage and intelligence, the younger generation in the city saw in him a voice that represents them and their ambitions. This is something that Mamdani's main competitor, Andrew Cuomo, failed at. Despite being supported by prominent figures like Hillary Clinton and having long experience in politics, he couldn't keep up with the American street. His campaign tours were limited to visiting temples and unions, while Mamdani was out among the people, listening to their problems and speaking with them in the language of the street. Zuhair, mayor of New York. The New York City mayoral primary elections have ended, and the big surprise is Zuhair Mamdani's victory. In the third round, he received 56% of the votes, surpassing his opponent, Andrew Cuomo, who got 44%. However, Mamdani is not yet the mayor of New York. The general election will be held on November 4, 2025, where Mamdani will face the current mayor of New York, Eric Adams, who is running as an independent after previously being part of the Democratic Party. along with other candidates Curtis Sliwa and Jim Walden. Despite Mamdani winning the Democratic nomination, the race is still undecided, and the final result will be determined in the upcoming general election. But will the pro-Israel lobby leave him alone? We've all seen the extensive campaigns targeting Mamdani. Even US President Trump himself came out and announced that he doesn't like him. He also declared that he would arrest Zuhair Mamdani if he even thought about stopping deportations. Trump also made sharp criticisms of Mamdani, calling him a communist. And because Mamdani pledged to use his authority to stop immigration and customs enforcement agents from deporting immigrants, Trump responded by saying, "If that's the case, we'll have to arrest him." He also said that America doesn't want communists, and if he is put in a position where citizens choose him, then he must be closely monitored. Trump threatened that if Mamdani doesn't act according to his preferences, he and his government would stop supporting him. In the end, we must acknowledge that Mamdani's victory in the New York City mayoral elections has shaken the American political establishment. The issue here is that those who oppose the US government and attempt to make reforms often face an unpleasant end. So, what will Mamdani's outcome be? Will he manage to become the mayor of New York and bring change to the city? Or will he be pushed out of the political scene, either legally or illegally? And with that, we have reached the end of today's video.